Great. So thank you for joining today's career panel. My name is Sean Kelly, and I'm the Assistant Director of Career Advising at the School of Public Health at Brown. Today, we are so fortunate to hear from a panel of Brownonians who earned their PhDs, both at Brown and beyond, now working in diverse disciplines. Our attendees are primarily PhD students and prospective PhD students weighing their potential postgrad options. So as many students look to their faculty mentors for advice regarding academic positions, our panelists' perspectives are especially helpful in considering other options outside of academia. So our goal for this discussion is to be as interactive as possible. So in addition to the questions we received in advance, we encourage you to take advantage of the Q&A feature in this webinar. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our panelists in reverse alphabetical order by last name. Try to switch it up every time we do a panel. So Jamie Zhang. Jamie graduated from the School of Public Health with a PhD in Biostatistics and joined Google in 2017. Jamie's dissertation was on statistical methods for genomic data, but Jamie now works with data on YouTube ads as a data scientist. Stephannie Shih. Stephannie graduated from Brown School of Public Health with a PhD in Epidemiology in 2018, joining 23andMe to help with the validation of health reports 23andMe customers receive as a data validation scientist. Beverly Gonzalez. Beverly graduated from Brown School of Public Health with an SCM in Biostatistics and earned a PhD in Applied Mathematics and Biostatistics from Arizona State University. At the Department of Veterans Affairs, Beverly worked with big data, developing models needed to address questions. And at Northwestern University, Beverly teaches a year-long statistics course to graduate students. And last but not least, Commander Kamil Barbour. Kamil has been an epidemiologist with the CDC for over 10 years, with a primary research interest in musculoskeletal disorders. Kamil graduated with a PhD in epidemiology from the University of Pittsburgh in 2010 and an MPH from Brown University in 2006, now serving as commander in the U.S. Public Health Service and team lead of the State Chronic Disease Epidemiology Assignee program at the CDC. So welcome, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. So let's get started with a question for everyone, and then we'll move into our pre-submitted questions, followed by Q&A submissions from the chat. So for everyone, in that same order, if you can remember, what inspired you to pursue your PhD? Starting with Jamie.
Oh, so I actually did a master in biostats before I joined Brown to do a PhD degree. So I did my undergrad in math and physics, which I learned nothing about stats. And then I picked up biostats when I was doing my master degree, and I like it a lot because it kind of combines what my background with data, and it has such a wide range of applications, the skills I learned from the program. Sorry. So so that's I guess the main reason that drove me to pursue a PhD.
Great, I think I'm next.
Definitely.
Before I started my PhD, I was doing a couple internships at some biotech companies in California. And then based on all the coworkers that I talked to and their credentials, I realized that pursuing a PhD would be best for me if I wanted to be where they are in a couple years.
So I became interested. I took advantage of several opportunities offered as an undergrad. And I remember specifically working with the MTBI group, Mathematical, Theoretical, and Biological Institute at Cornell University. And it was there where I met a really great mentor who really helped me to piece together how to use math, how to use data, how to use statistics. And I was already earning a math and a statistics degree from the University of Illinois. And after that, it was just, I love to do this. This is what I want to make my number one thing. And that's how I proceeded to the master's and the PhD.
Hey, everyone, this is Kamil. For me, I had two main reasons, I think, why I decided to pursue a PhD. Number one, I felt like I would have more options after I graduate versus an MPH. I would have the academic option, something in government. It just felt like it would open more doors for me. And then the second reason was I just wanted to get more into advanced advanced biostats. I wanted to get more into research. And I felt like in an MPH, it's a 1.5, 2 year program. It's not enough time to really get deep into biostats, learn how to do good epidemiological research. So I needed more time. And plus also being longer in grad school is fun. I hope you guys find it fun. I certainly did over my 6 years.
That's great. So one of the first questions that was submitted is, do you actually need a master's before pursuing a PhD? It sounds like yes for our panelists, or most of our panelists, but whoever wants to answer, you can just kind of go ahead and dive in.
I'll just say, like, for where I went, like, most of us had an MPH, but they did take some people with a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, I agree with Kamil. I joined Brown's PhD program without a master's, and I'd said there was a bit to catch up on, and also in terms of deciding what your PhD thesis would be focused on might be a little bit, you might need to spend a little bit more time deciding, but it was, I really enjoyed the experience, and I still got my PhD, so it was good at Brown.
Yeah, I think it also depends on whether your undergrad is in the same area as the area you want to pursue a PhD from. So if you're not entirely sure that you want to switch to a different area for PhD, you can do a master first and then decide.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how did your experience in academia prepare you for your current role? I know that tangentially, some of you are still connected to the world of academia, but it's helpful to know how that experience doing intensive research prepared you for what you're doing now.
So I think it was, I can talk about biostats. I think it's very transferable skill. What you do is analyze data from like biomedical and from genomics background data, but the problems you meet, you deal with, dealing with those type of data also applies to other types of data. So I think that research experience of thinking through from basic data manipulation and cleaning to like deeper analysis and how to understand like the methods you use is applicable to the type of data you deal with applies to the type of data I deal with in my PhD, and also applies to the data I deal with working in industry. So
I agree with Jamie. It is a very transferable skill. In my case, I work with a lot of students at Northwestern who are all earning either a master's or their PhDs. And so I help them with their statistical work and help them to think about, well, how can I reshape this data to do this type of analysis? Does my data need to be wide or does it need to be long? Do I need to check for certain assumptions? In my role at the VA, I am the center statistician, so I get to work with, apply those skills to, for example, grant writing. So how many observations do I need to, for example, have a strong enough effect so that my results are generalizable? And at the VA, I get to work with really big data. So it's a very useful skill that I can go from one world to the other world.
Great, thank you both. So that begs the question, when it comes to applying to governmental jobs, whether at the VA or the CDC, did you plan for this career? It's certainly an application process that you have to navigate. It might be foreign to some of our participants today. Can you tell us more about the process and what that has looked like over the course of your careers?
No, I mean, I can go, and then maybe Beverly afterwards. But, you know, for the CDC, I didn't really, it wasn't something that I planned. I know some people that work at CDC did plan it over their graduate school experience. It was one of several options I was considering. I was also considering postdocs, different academic positions. I think for me, like this opportunity at CDC, I was a fellow in the Epidemic Intelligence Services. It's a 2-year, pretty highly paid fellowship at CDC, competitive fellowship. I think they take around 65 per year out of about 500 applicants. And so they take PhDs, MDs, different people from different qualifications. And so they liked, some of my credentials and what I had. And so it was easy to use those credentials to get accepted and move into a career in epidemiology at the CDC.
So just like Kamil, mentioned, I did not plan to work for the Department of Veteran Affairs. I think when I was in high school, I was looking up jobs and just asking like Google, like, where do mathematicians work? And I found this mathematical statistician posting, and I thought to myself, ooh, I would one day love to do that. But never in my mind did I think that I was actually going to end up in that role. And so years later, it sort of just fell on my lap. I was working in the Biostatistics core at Loyola University. And one of the PIs there was also had a position at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and they were looking for a mathematical statistician. And the process is rigorous in terms of applying. It does take about 6 months. I don't know if it's the same thing for Kamil, but it was about 6 months. They have to do all the background checks and you have to submit a lot of paperwork, but I think it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, it was a lot of paperwork, a lot.
That's great. And I love the fact, Beverly, that you mentioned just Googling, what are my options? It can start as simply as that. And so that's great to hear. So the next question I have, well, I have a two-part question. A, Jamie, working at Google, do you use Google for career advice? But also, where did you start, your job search? Applying to Google and Stephannie applying to 23andMe. How did you find those opportunities and what resources did you use to find those?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of interesting that I was kind of very, I didn't even know that there are data scientists. Well, back then it was called quantitative analyst, and also called statisticians at tech companies, especially at Google. So for me, it was one of my undergrad friend who got the job, and I visited him and looked around the campus and stuff like that. So it was kind of eye-opening, and I talked to him about what kind of things he does. And it was something very interesting to me as well. So for me, I guess the job hunting process is I get to know there's a position and I apply through him. So that was yeah.
I didn't have a personal connection like Jamie did, but I knew about 23andMe. So I applied for 23andMe right when I was about to graduate. And they were heavily advertising at then. So then I looked at the careers page and found this position that I'm currently at that was very aligned to my interests. So it was focused on like the genetic data 23andMe has. And so I went for it and I learned a little bit more about that position after doing the interviews and getting to know the teammates I would be working with. And so then I accepted. But it was mostly Google searches, LinkedIn searches to find different positions.
Great, thank you. So taking advantage of those mainstream tools is definitely still a recommendation. That's great to hear. You alluded, Stephannie, to timeline. If everybody could share, when you were completing your PhD, what was your timeline for searching for positions? Were you looking, before you graduated, the fall of your final year, the summer after you graduated? Just sharing some perspective on when you should start the search is helpful. And that would include fellowships too.
Yeah, I think it first depends on when you would like to start. I know some people would like to take some vacation before starting a job, and that's totally understandable. You need to celebrate, but it depends when you want to start. Sorry. I knew that I wanted to move back to California, so I just started searching right after I defended. I think once I finished my defense, job opportunities became more available and recruiters started to reach out more. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. And I applied and started interviewing around May. And so once I finished like the graduation ceremony at Brown, I started in June in my new position.
Yeah, I started much earlier. I started in the summer of the year before I finished, and I started with the interviews in fall, and then by the end of fall, early winter, I'd secured the CDC fellowship, which started in July, and I graduated in May. So, I mean, I definitely encourage you guys to just start earlier. The earlier, I feel like you can have more options, and so you won't be forced into just necessarily picking one or two positions. It opens it up for you a little bit more.
So my timeline was kind of similar to the first question in the Q&A. I was planning to defend in May, and I started. So I guess the way I planned for it is I was also applying for postdoc positions, but besides that, I was applying for either tech companies and finance companies. And what I learned is they have very different pace in terms of interview. Specifically for like Google, Facebook, data science position, they move slower than finance companies. So once you started applying, you would get, at first applying in November, and then because of the holidays and stuff, my first interview, like phone interview, was in January. And then 1 week after the phone interview, I got on-site interview, which happens 1 or 2 weeks after that. And then after the on-site interview, it took them like 2 or 3 weeks to come back with the results. And then I signed the final offer and stuff at the end of February. And then started the immigration, like work visa application after that. So that was my timeline. But if you were to applying for finance company, it would be much faster than that. You would get everything from applying to final results within 1 month. And you kind of want to time those two tracks so that you get results back at the same time and make a decision. Because you also need to reply to them within a certain time frame. So I started applying tech companies first, maybe 1 month ahead of applying for finance companies, and then get the results around the same time. So.
Great, thank you. A similar question to go along with that is, did everyone graduate in the kind of standard May timeline from their PhD programs, and did that affect your timeline for applying for jobs?
Yeah, I did. It was May for me.
I didn't. I graduated in December, and it was because I was working while earning the doctorate. So I finished my program at Brown, and I then moved on to a job at Johns Hopkins, working with prostate cancer. And then remember I said, like, I met a mentor, and that mentor moved from Cornell to develop his own center at Arizona State University. And it was that mentor that allowed me then to continue working with my PhD program while working. So mentors and the relationships that you develop with people will definitely help you down the line. But no, I didn't graduate at the same time that everyone did.
Great, that's super helpful. So it sounds like a balance of personal relationships and networking and online tools for traditional job searches are helpful, and definitely encourage everyone to take advantage of all of those avenues. Next question I have is, do you know of any peers who went from a PhD into an entrepreneurial role? It might be more private sector focused, but would love some insight into entrepreneurship as a PhD graduate. If the answer is no, that's also okay. Nope. Okay, we'll move on to the next. Let's see. There's a question from an international student asking about applying for positions in the United States after graduation. Are there any insights that you can share about the application process to jobs as an international student? I don't want to put you on the spot, Jamie, but if you don't mind sharing a little bit of insight into that process and how that impacted your job search, we would love to hear.
Yeah, it was kind of, I think it was 3 years ago. I think the environment is more friendly, I would say. So I started, I guess the first day you want to decide is your defense day. So I started applying for OPT first. And the OPT holds for, I think, 2 years. So during that process, I guess from job applying perspective, you would think about whether your employer supports H-1B visa. So that's I think that's the only thing. And if you're from STEM, you can also extend UF1 by another extend your OPT by another 3 years. So that kind of widens your pool of job selections because you don't need H1B support sponsor from employer. Is that I think that's sorry, I wasn't, does that answer all part of the question or did I miss something?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
So now a question for everyone again. What do you like most about your current job in the day-to-day? What do you love most about it? Does it apply to what you studied as a student, as a PhD student? It would be helpful to know what you love most about your current roles and why should our participants potentially consider the paths that you've taken for those roles.
I like learning new things, and I would have to say that with my current supervisor right now, very nice, but also keeps me on my toes. I get things like, Beverly, I want to look at how the Affordable Care Act didn't make an impact on this outcome. So I know that I'm looking at an intervention model. And starting at the job, you don't really get experience like that running big models like that in school. You just know how to check for certain assumptions. So you do have to study. So it feels like you are in grad school and you're studying, but the reward that you get when you figure something out and you explain the results and you're like, oh, this is how everything kind of ties in together. I think that that's the best part for me.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, there are many things I like about my position. I like that I'm still, kind of academic, still doing a lot of research, writing a lot of papers, publishing. I like that I'm now in a higher level role, so I'm mentoring people, I'm supervising people, and so I really enjoy that process. Being in the public health service as a commander too, I have there are a lot of benefits, a lot of job security and like pension benefits in the future. So financially, I like that aspect of that career, very stable. And I like tackling public health emergencies as well. So I've been heavily involved in COVID-19. I've done 3 deployments with the CDC so far. They've worn me out, but it's something that you could easily do with CDC if you're interested in that career.
So let's see. Yeah, I really enjoy what I'm currently doing. I don't apply all the epidemiology training onto my current work. I'm actually in the engineering team, so I'm doing a lot of programming. So I would highly recommend if you want to keep your options open to focus on your programming skills. So R is very, I guess, of interest to a lot of companies, and Python. But what I really like and is very rewarding about my current position is I'm helping to develop this product that customers can see, and you can see that direct impact and also kind of feedback from customers saying, you changed my life, and that kind of feel-good feeling has been amazing.
I guess what I like about my position most right now is I kind of similar to Stephannie, I work with a product that I use every single day, which is YouTube. But we care more about the YouTube ads perspective. But I know that the work I contributed to improving YouTube ads will ultimately benefit YouTube creators and growing YouTube as a platform for more and more people especially creators to make it on the platform. So that was kind of the thing. I mean, I feel very proud of. But in terms of day-to-day life, I like the people I work with the most. I guess that's also the answer to I also got the question, what do you like Google the most? And it's mostly the people I work with they often are passionate about the things they work. And if they are not, then they have a lot more opportunities to transfer to other teams because Google is a big company and they have opportunities to work with very different things in other parts of the company. So yeah, that's the 2 things I like.
Great, thank you everyone. We have a couple of real-time questions I'll throw out there. This one is for Beverly. Can you share more about how you found your mentor and built the relationship? Assuming a PI is a mentor, obviously, but how else do you go about finding mentors and building those relationships?
I see. So when I was at the University of Illinois, I worked as a math tutor. And one day I was walking into work and I saw this posting. and it was talking about that research program. But I think what I focused on was that it was that you would go away for the summer and get a stipend. So I said, sure, why not? Let's apply. And when I applied, certain things just automatically just blew me away. I was at Cornell University. The mentor was probably the person that has had the most impact in my life. Every week we would have sessions where I was introduced to something that I didn't know, like what is a GRE, or how do you prep for a GRE, or why is a career in math important, or what are the things that you can do with a career in math? Particularly if you're a woman, how can you stand out when you're applying for jobs or giving presentations, so that when you're communicating your results, it automatically captures the audience. And then research, on the research side, it was more learning about the math behind it. And it was that summer program that actually led me to then move on and attend other conferences where I met people that were also interested in math and science. And so that's how I started to. Then the following summer, because I had taken part in that summer program, I met another mentor who was at Rice University, this time doing a summer program. It's called RUSI's Rice Undergrad Summer Institute of Statistics. And I think it's still being held, I'm not sure, by the same mentor. But that was where I saw, oh, this is exactly what you do with stats. And so I wanted to merge the two worlds, but that's how it pretty much began.
Great, thanks so much. Do any of our other panelists have insight into building those mentorship connections?
Yeah, I'll just say, like, my PhD mentor, who I've been working with since 2008, so now it's been 12 years. We have an excellent relationship, even though she's at the University of Pittsburgh and I'm at the CDC. We've continued to collaborate on papers. We've continued to work together. Having a good PhD mentor or graduate mentor is essential. I mean, I owe her so much to my success. And obviously you have to work hard, but like having people who can guide you and put you in the right direction helps you a lot. I definitely encourage you, if you don't have a good mentor, seek one out.
Great, thank you. Another question we have in our Q&A is about the pandemic and working remotely. So do you foresee this trend continuing in the future? Is everyone working remotely? It looks like it, but I can't quite tell. I certainly am. I'm in a cabin in Vermont, but it's helpful to know if you're applying to programs, should you be looking at remote opportunities that are entirely remote in the future? Or should you think that most of these positions will return to in-person environments? Whoever wants to answer.
Maybe Kamil could take it first.
If you're interested, at the CDC, if you guys are interested in that 2-year fellowship program after your PhD in the epidemic intelligence, well, I guess this is for masters mostly, or they're PhDs? Yeah.
Mostly PhD students, actually.
Oh, okay. So if you are interested, yeah, it's completely 100% remote. The new students that came in this July have probably not even met each other yet. So they're, the 60 or so that they selected, they're all remote. It still works well, Zoom. You can still be deployed, to work on community outbreaks and different things. And there you could probably meet some of your colleagues and get to know them in that type of setting. But, CDC is pretty much, shut down right now, and we're all working from our homes.
Anyone else want to share insights about plans? I feel like Google has extended through 2021, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, so we've been working from home starting early March, and it was announced that we're working from home until June of next year, this September. So it's probably going to be longer than June of 2020, like I said, maybe 2021, but I don't see, it's entirely my personal opinions. I don't foresee this trend continuing into the future because I feel like there's a kind of special energy when people are together in the same place and working on the same thing, and just so much easier and so much more efficient. I guess ultimately, I think if a pandemic is going to be a thing like we have to live with, then there are people who will work from home, like maybe half of the week and then go to the office the other half. That could be an option for some people. Yeah, but I don't see like the entire company working from home when it's safe to work in the office.
I kind of want to just follow up Jamie's response. So 23andMe is a smaller company than Google, but we tend to follow kind of what the big tech companies have been implementing. So we also started work from home in March, and it's probably going to be extended to next year of June or even further, depending on the executive's decision. In terms of being fully remote, it really depends on the executive team and what they're comfortable doing in terms of how they want to run their organization.
Great, thanks so much. One quick question for our tech folks, and then we'll go back to a question for all. Did you apply, Stephannie and Jamie, to jobs requiring PhDs, or were they positions that said, master's required, PhD preferred, and how did you decide which jobs to apply to?
So I think for me, the official job posting is like what you said, like master is required and then PhD preferred. But I think after I joined and looking at the people with the same like data science title, most of us are PhD. So it's kind of preferred, I guess, by Google that the data scientists we hear. But there are other data related job titles such as product analyst, business analyst. There's also advanced measurement technology position. Like all three titles are works with data all the time, and they are also available for master degrees.
Yeah, so when I applied to this particular position, they required a PhD, and the current team I'm working on, they all have PhDs. But as a master's student, I still recommend just applying if you're interested in it anyways. Potentially the recruiter or the manager could make a specific role based on your training and interview and how that goes out. They might be able to accommodate, make accommodations, especially if they're currently hiring a lot and need help with the analysis. They might be able to make exceptions.
Great, thank you both. So now a question for all, and in whatever order works out naturally. What experiences at Brown do you find most helpful in your current role? Was it the community? Was it the educational experience, the location, a combination of all of those? Would love to hear your perspectives. Hopefully you had some experiences that have helped you in your current role.
I would say there's just a sense of community. When I started at Brown, I did have my daughter, and I was the only grad student at that time who had a daughter, and the department was so welcoming. And my mentor, his name Dr. Hernando Mbao, very helpful to me and guiding me at every step. And the friends that I got at Brown and I made at Brown, once you leave Brown, it's so hard. Like I always think about Rhode Island, and you always want to go back, but if you go back, it's never really the same. But everything for me.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all. It's all about the community for me. I mean, I really miss Providence. Those were two of the best, years of my life. Great experiences, friends, learning. Because I was a biology major as an undergrad, but beginning to, dip my toes into public health, learning about it was phenomenal. And I just, I miss the community living in Providence. That was just excellent.
I just following on that, I think specifically Biostats is an even smaller community within the bigger Brown community. We have, in my year, we have 3 PhD students in total for the department, and we have around 15 maybe faculty members. So we all know each other very well during the process, and it was kind of the experience of knowing everyone and just knowing what they are doing and expand your knowledge quite a lot. And also the fact that I was able to work with my advisor very, very closely for the entire 4 years I was at Brown, and I learned a lot from her. So I guess that's the most valuable experience for me. The way I do data analysis and research, sometimes I would look at my results and say, that's how my advisor, Jane, did it. So that happens to me.
I love Jane. I know who you're talking about. I love
Yeah. She'll be happy to hear about it.
Yeah, definitely the sense of community was amazing. And I think without like the cohort and all the support Brown provides, like I don't think I would be here like happily or where I am without them.
Great, that is so lovely to hear, and one of the reasons I really enjoy being at Brown as well. So that's fantastic. A question about salaries, and certainly don't have to disclose, but when applying for maybe governmental positions, they're publicly posted, right? Or not, let me know. But for private jobs, how do you know what is considered a reasonable salary with your educational experience and everything that comes along with it? Certainly, please don't share numbers, but how you came to understand what a competitive salary was without the amount necessarily being posted publicly.
I think the Glassdoor is a good resource. You get an understanding of the distribution, the range of compensation you get from certain level with certain job title. So that can be used as a reference. Another way to know that you're fairly compensated, I guess, is to get a compete offer. Like when you're evaluated higher by another company, you can negotiate back and forth between the offers. So.
Yeah, I agree with Jamie's recommendations. I also used Glassdoor. Other recommendations would be if you have connections to those industries or specific positions, and you might be able to reach out and they might be able to give you some recommendations. But I know this is like a tough kind of conversation. So I agree, it's difficult to get these numbers sometimes.
And there's another source that just came to me that I'm not sure I should mention it, but it's kind of weird community. There's an app called Blind. Blind is blind, and it's kind of, you have to join through your official affiliated email. But among the community, it's all anonymous, so people talk about their compensation a lot, frankly. So that's another way to see and compare.
Great, thank you. Helpful resources for sure. A question for our folks with government experience, and Beverly especially, you talk about mentorship, and that's kind of like PhD students looking for mentors. How has mentorship impacted you in your career in terms of mentoring junior staff or students that you work with? So both for Beverly and Kamil.
Well, I love to teach. So in my classes, I teach the fundamental statistics courses. So for example, at Northwestern, it starts with a very fundamental basic stats, and then it moves on to the more hierarchical level survival analysis type of analysis. But in between, I find opportunities since I know that the grad students are also working in different labs with different PIs, and they might encounter different questions depending on the datas that they're working with. I use those opportunities to kind of touch base with students. So for example, I had one student recently reach out. They're in a lab and they were asked to do a certain type of analysis. Professor, I don't know how I should proceed. And so then that is my opportunity to kind of mentor.
Great, so it sounds like students taking initiative is well regarded in terms of you then being super open and helpful with that mentorship relationship.
I would definitely say, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I think for my experience in government and mentorship, yeah, I did take from my academic advisor and then my mentors at the CDC as well. I spend a lot of time just observing them, watching them, seeing what they do very, very well, and then kind of trying to take that on as I supervise and mentor more junior scientists as well, and just try to look and see what they do very, very well and try to emulate it, and it'll help you a lot because they've been around for a while. They have tons of experience. They know what works and what doesn't for the most part. And so that's been very helpful.
Great, thank you. So if anyone has any other questions, use the Q&A functionality now. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up after one or two more questions. The salary question piqued someone's interest, so we'll go back to that for a second. Many applications ask for desired salary or salary history. How do you handle that? Do you leave it blank? Is it okay to leave it blank when you're completing those applications?
I was told to best keep salary conversations till the very end. So during applications, I usually just leave it blank. And then during the interview, they won't ask, but then at the end of the interview, usually the recruiter would mention, what is your salary range? I guess it's up to you if you want to bring that up. But then for me personally, I told them I would like to see the offer, see your benefits, and then kind of make a decision on whether this is reasonable and something I would want to go forward with.
I agree with Stephannie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the CDC. You could look up the salaries, and yeah, there's no negotiation. I mean, you generally come in at the level that you come in. And for the fellowship program, if any of you guys are interested in, you could look up the numbers. So it's not trying to hide or anything, but it's pretty good for a fellowship. Most postdocs will pay you about $40,000-$50,000. This can pay you $80,000 right out of PhD as a fellow. Get your foot through the CDC door. And then you could, apply for a higher level job after you finish your 2-year fellowship. And so I think the money is pretty good for government. It's probably not going to be comparable to private sector, but better than an academic postdoc, I would say.
Great. And in terms of having experience, having a PhD will certainly factor into the governmental salary.
Yeah, because if you come in with an MPH, they usually put you at a GS9, which is probably closer to a postdoc. Right? It's probably around 40,000, 45,000. With a PhD, you hit around 80, 85 coming in.
Great, thank you. So we have a question submitted for Jamie or anyone with experience working in tech. What do people look for when they screen resumes for data science positions? Keywords, technology and software, experience. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So it's the same for phone screening and on-site interview. It's evaluated at 4 areas. So first is stats knowledge, because you're applying for a very stats-heavy, classic type of data scientist rather than like machine learning type of data scientist. So the first area is stats knowledge, which includes like basic hypothesis testing, modeling knowledge, just causal inference. Bayesian is not really evaluated that heavily, so that's the typical ones. And then the second area is data intuition. So it would be more like open-ended question or data setup, where you're asked to provide your intuition of what kind of methods works. Is the conclusion right from the data based on the data you have, that type of question. So third one is programming. So programming is actually very flexible and not that, so you get to choose your preferred programming language for stats analysis, either like R, Python, or other types that I don't know quite well. And then the final area is communication. So I think it was evaluated through while you were talking through the other, going through the other 3 areas. You're evaluated on whether you're communicating your thoughts clearly and clearly state the caveats of analysis and stuff like that. And as phone screening, this bar is actually pretty low. Like as long as you know stats, you have any hands-on experience with programming, you can usually pass it. For on-site, it's 4 or 5 separate interviews. So it's kind of, you have to like satisfy each interviewer's bar from that perspective. So it's a bit higher, yeah.
Great, thanks so much. And I guess a final question for everyone before we end is, what piece of advice do you have to share with the attendees here? It's been really enlightening hearing your perspectives. It can be something you know now that you wish you knew when you were a PhD student. That would be helpful to help prepare our attendees for the job application process. In whatever order you're interested in.
Well, I'll just start it off. Yeah, just be open to several different careers, because like we were saying at the beginning, the PhD in Epi, PhD in Biostats, it's transferable to many different industries, and so just keep your eyes open for positions within government, in at Google, pharma, academic, just you could apply all these skills and feel like you haven't wasted your PhD. You could take all these tools into all these different industries and succeed. So don't be weary about looking around at different industries that are out there. That would be my advice.
So I would say everything that Kamil said, in addition to just taking advantage of all the opportunities that come your way. So for example, my first job was not a biostats job. It was working for education. And within education, I was working with big data, but it still wasn't I wasn't using my biostat skills. I was using my stat skills. And I still remember what my first project was. The college was composed of 7 smaller colleges, and can you prove that there is great inflation occurring at one of the colleges? That was my first project. But it was in the process of working there and meeting people, and talking to colleagues and getting that experience with coding that I was able then to transition to a more biostats role, which was at the Johns Hopkins. And then I ended up in the biostats core at Loyola, and then finally at the VA.
I guess for me, the one advice I would give is, I suppose, it's kind of similar to openness. Like, don't limit yourself into what you know already, or what your degree is, or what your research topic is, or even don't limit to like, I want to work in tech, I want to work in finance or pharma. Just limit. I think from my perspective, the right way to determine your career goal is to look at the person you want to become. Like you get to know, you want to learn who, like everyone around you or ahead of you, what they are doing in their current job position, in their career status, and then see if you want to become that person, and then use that as a career goal and try to approach that from try to, I guess, work yourself towards that goal, to become that person rather than a specific title or specific compensation or type of companies. So that's the advice I have.
I think everyone summarized the advice I was going to give too, but also to enjoy your time as being a student at Brown. It seems like all of us really enjoyed our time. And then another advice I would recommend is also like take advantage of the interviews that you're getting when you're applying, and then you can get a sense of the people working in these different groups and kind of get a sense of, is this where I want to be in 5 years? And I think that's really helpful in terms of choosing a job as well.
Great. Well, on behalf of Brown and the School of Public Health, thank you again so much for participating. It has been great hearing your perspectives. We're very fortunate. We will share this webinar on our career website, hopefully next week. Just go to brown.edu/go/careers. And again, thank you so much for everyone's time. We have panelists from many different time zones and attendees from all over the world today. So thank you again, and much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.